Good morning. It's 10:30, so if we can get started. This is the South Carolina Building Codes Council meeting. Members, public notice of this meeting was properly posted at the Synergy Business Park, Kingstree Building, and on the agency's website, and provided to all requesting persons, organizations, and news media in accordance with Section 30-4-80 of the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. First item we have is the approval of the agenda. We do, hold on a second, we do have one item not removed from the agenda. Would someone amend the agenda?
Chair Patrick Bradshaw, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Mike Lohman, second.
All those in favor of approving the amended agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The agenda is approved. Thank you. Next is the introduction of council members. Sorry, I have not had enough coffee today yet. Can't speak. So if we can start with Mr. Stewart, our newest member.
Joshua Stewart, Greenville, South Carolina.
Modular rep.
Hearing.
Michael Richardson, electrical rep.
Hopkins Governmental.
Michael Lohman, home builder.
Delisa Clark, state engineer designee.
Chris Cullum, fuel gas representative.
Mike Gelazza, Fire Service.
Steve Adams, general public.
Patrick Bradshaw, disabled member.
David Black, Municipal Administrator.
Charles Stewart, General Contractor.
And just a reminder to all council members, if you could pull your microphones close to you so that way it picks you up, the base of it will move.
We do have a quorum this morning, but we have two members that have requested approval for an excused absence, Bennett Griffin and Saul Napolitano. Do I have a motion to approve their absence?
Michael Lohman, so moved.
Melissa Hopkins, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Approval is approved. Next, we have the meeting minutes from February 3rd council meeting and also the March 24th modular review committee meeting. Minutes were distributed prior to this meeting. Just have a motion to approve them.
Melissa Hopkins, move to approve the minutes.
Mike Gelazza, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The approval passes. Thank you all for coming today. We have a lot of members of the public. We appreciate your attendance. Let's start with our staff reports. Ms. Beeson?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the council. I'm Holly Beeson with the Office of Communications and Governmental Affairs. I have brought with me Virginia Wetzel. She's our legislative liaison. She is the one who tracks all of the bills, so I will defer to her on those. I will give you an update on the regulations, though. As you know, we had the building code modifications from 2024 that we were taking through the General Assembly approval process this past regular legislative session. They were all approved we did have the one modification to the International Plumbing Code that the members required us to remove a requirement for a bottle filling station. You may recall bottle filling stations came into the codes in 2021. And in researching it a little bit, my understanding was when they were added in, they weren't added in as a mandate for occupancies. They were added in to say that if you provide a bottle filling station, it must be ADA compliant, it must be accessible. I think we went a step further and prescribed a percentage of required for new construction in educational facilities. I think the language was, or is currently 50%, I believe 50% of the, let me get this language right. You all know your codes better than I do, but I did print what it currently says. Let me just. The current language is, in educational settings, 50% of the required number of drinking fountains must incorporate a bottle filling station. When this came up in the House Regulations and Administrative Procedures Committee, they had concerns that the bottle filling stations were more expensive than just a regular drinking fountain, and so they asked that the requirement be removed, and so we had to withdraw and resubmit without the requirement. Now, that means nothing as far as schools are concerned. They can still have as many bottle filling stations as they choose. They just are not going to be required by our codes to do so. That was the only change, though, we were asked to make. This has been the best process we've ever had as far as the approvals were concerned. The transparency on the website where there was a summary of all of the requested changes from the industry. There was a list of who made the request and what the request actually was so helpful when we took it downtown. That's Maggie, Molly, staff working with you all. It made everything so much easier for us. And it also helped help the members understand that really that you all review these in a comprehensive manner, and you review each of the modifications requested by industry too, so they understand better probably than they ever have before just how much these requests have been vetted before they ever get downtown. So that when we went downtown, it was really a situation where Maggie walked through the changes on a more general 30,000-foot level than getting into the weeds. And they were very appreciative of that, and they approved them all with that just one change. The way the regulations work is they were deemed approved by expiration of the 110-day review period on May 3rd. They will be effective this Friday upon publication in the State Register, except that you all have that additional provision that says when your new regulations go into effect. I believe your statute says you either go into effect July 1 or January 1 of the following year. So whichever date you all had voted on before will be the date they actually go into effect. But there will be no more changes to them after this point, now that they will be published in the Register. That is an update on the regulations. We will continue. I will be reaching out to the boards and the staff to find out if any additional changes need to be made to other regulations. Of course, you all have a whole body of regulations that are unrelated to code modifications. If we need to make any more changes for the 2027 session, that process starts as soon as these are complete. So basically, we'll start that process in June with the early publications in the State Register of a drafting notice, which just puts the public on notice that we're considering changes going forward and that they want to pay close attention to our upcoming meetings so that they can hear the conversations and participate in public comment if they have any comments to make. So that is where that stands. I will pass our trusty microphone over to Virginia to give you an update on the legislation and where it all stands now. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Virginia Wetzel, and we appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys today. Sine Die, which typically marks the end of the legislative session, and for this year, it was the second year of a two-year session, was last Thursday. Typically, at that point, there is a joint resolution that is passed, which basically dictates what the General Assembly can take up after that date. That was not approved, so the governor actually called the General Assembly back into session to take up several matters, including redistricting. With that call back, there were no parameters on what they could take up or how long they would be in session. So we are sitting tight and watching on a daily basis what each body is doing. So far to date, the House met on Friday. They met yesterday, and they're meeting today to take up redistricting alone. So like I said, we're watching just in case they also take up any other pending bills. But I did want to give you a recap of the bills that did make it to ratification, and some of those bills were actually signed into law this past Friday. So I wanted to share that update with you. I'm going to hit these at a very high level, and I encourage you to dig into those bills in your own time, or if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. So I'm going to start back at the top of what's happened this year. The first bill that was signed into law that would be of interest to you guys is Senate Bill 623, which exempts Georgetown County from building requirements for properties that are affected by the Lenoir line. And so that bill went into effect on February the 10th. It was signed then and was effective then. The second bill that was actually signed this past Friday was related to billboards. Currently, billboards, the sign aspect of a billboard is exempt from contractor licensure. However, this bill clarified some ambiguity that the structure is also now exempt from contractor licensure. So that may affect local governments and their permitting and you know, things from that aspect. So we wanted to make you all aware of that. Third bill that was actually signed into law Friday as well is roadside markets. The bill actually defined a roadside market, and it exempts those markets from being subject to any sort of permitting, inspections, stormwater requirements, and various water use permitting laws. So roadside market has to be located on a farm, and it has to sell products from that farm. The law is very specific on the way it's defined a roadside market, so I encourage you to look at that bill to understand the caveats that are in place there. That was effective May 15th as well. There's another bill that actually was signed on Friday that deals with public water system connections. It is House Bill 5111. It was signed into law on the 15th, and it prohibits counties, municipalities, special purpose districts, and other political subdivisions from adopting or enforcing ordinance that prohibit the drilling, installation, repair, operation, or maintenance of private wells serving agriculture or single-family residential properties. So that bill went into effect on Friday. The last bill that I want to bring to your attention that is heading towards the finish line, we think, is House Bill 5113 that's related to modular homes. It was ratified this past week and is pending the governor's signature. It basically would prevent local governments from imposing new zoning, land use, or regulatory requirements on the replacement home, home site, or property of a manufactured home that were not in place prior to the replacement. It also amends Section 23-4385, which applies now to own-frame modular homes. And then it also removes the current 5-year limitation that restricts older modular display homes from being used for residential occupancy. So we are watching that bill and watching to see what the governor will do with that bill. The last bill that I want to bring to your attention that unfortunately petered out in the Senate was House Bill 5216. It is related to the Energy Code. The bill, as it was introduced, would not be applicable to residential construction, but to commercial construction, and it would shift the updated adoption of the Energy Code for commercial construction into the normal adoption process that you all just completed. That bill, we did speak a lot with legislators on the implementation aspects of that bill. Throughout its journey through the process, there were questions as to when would that jump into the normal cycle. The House was adamant that it conformed to your current adoption process. If that bill had passed, that would have the 2027 energy codes being reviewed by you guys in 2028. The General Assembly would then take up modifications and regulations in 2029, and then the updated codes would most likely take effect January of 2030. That bill did not make it across the finish line. It has not been ratified. It passed the House and is currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee. So the likelihood of it passing this year is slim, but like I said, we are watching everything very closely. And I know I said that was the last bill, but there is one other bill that is pretty pivotal for all of our boards here at LLR. It's House Bill 3021, which is the Small Business Regulatory Freedom Act. This bill has had a long journey this year. It was introduced in the House and passed unanimously by the House, and then made its way over to the Senate, where it was totally reshaped entirely. And I want today to explain the similarities between the House and Senate bill and the differences, because right now that bill resides in a conference committee where there are 3 conferees from the House, 3 conferees from the Senate. It could very well be taken up in the last few days of the session that's occurring right now. So I want to make sure I try to hit the highlights of what it looks like now. It is a intense and complicated bill, so I'm going to just stay up here, but please ask me questions if you have them. So the similarities between the 2 bills, it has the Legislative Audit Council reviewing all regulations. That appears in both bills. That council would actually be laying out a schedule to review each regulation, and then they would be reporting to the General Assembly what regulations exist currently under proper authority and what regulations are considered obsolete. So that would occur over the next 5 to 8 years, which fortunately is the same time frame that we do our 5-year review cycle now, all of our boards. So that was a helpful insert as far as timeline goes, that we're very used to doing our 5-year review, and this would just be folded into that review with them now inserted as a new oversight or review of our regulations. Another aspect of the bill that's similar on both sides is related to the judicial review. It would require courts to interpret statutes and regulations de novo, meaning courts would independently interpret the law without deferring to an agency's interpretation. And this change would apply both to the judicial review under the Administrative Procedures Act and appeals from administrative law courts. So that's a change, but is similar in both versions. The next component is the removal of the professional exemptions. So as this bill traveled through the legislative process, especially on the Senate side, various professions came forward and were asked to be exempt from the provisions altogether. Some professions that come to mind right away were pilots, harbor pilots. We had a lot of our medical professions come forward asking to be exempt. The bill as it stands now on both sides has removed all of the exemptions that were in play. So that is no longer a component of the law if it passes. And then now I'm going to hit the differences. And this is what the conference committee will be negotiating in their meeting should they decide to hold one. So the primary difference between the two bills lies with the enforcement and consequences for agencies. Let's see. There are timelines in place for us to complete our review with the LAC in place now. And if we don't meet that review, the Senate has declared that we would be prohibited from filing any new regulations. So, you know, Holly and I have read through this bill multiple times, and we feel confident it's going to be a lift, but I do think that we can meet that review requirement that's in place by the Senate. The House, however, took a different approach. They amended the bill, and they would require, let's see, regulations, sorry. Bear with me here. The review could apply to a single regulation, an entire program, or an agency's entire regulatory framework, which would be called a modernization review. If the House, any of the legislative committees could decide to conduct a modernization review, which is in the House version of the bill. If we did not comply with that modernization review, then the regulations that were being reviewed would sunset. So that is a component of the bill that we're watching very closely. There are other fiscal impact transparency requirements that would be added to our regulatory process under the House version. And then lastly, the legislative approval threshold looks a bit different. So the House version uses a $1 million threshold over 5 years. So if a regulation would have an economic impact of $1 million over 5 years, then the General Assembly would require that regulation to be approved through a joint regulation and not through the traditional regulatory review process. The Senate has a different threshold. It was $10 million. So we are still waiting through both versions of the bill and are hoping to have a much clearer and detailed explanation for you guys once this bill is finalized, if it is finalized. But we encourage you guys to bring forward questions if you have them. I'm happy to look into any details if needed. That is.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Next on our agenda is the council executives report. Ms. Smith?
Yes, good morning. I do want to take a moment just to thank Virginia and Holly. There's been a lot of movement in the legislature this year and things that we as staff needed to be present for, and they just did an incredible job of keeping us updated, even though things come down the pike very quickly. So we really appreciate all the work they do. Yep. I do want to take a moment as well to welcome Joshua Stewart. He is our newest council member, holding the plumbing seat after Mr. Hill's retirement from the council. So we really appreciate you being willing to hold that seat and work with us, and your willingness to serve the state. All right, we'll dive right into our administrative reports this morning. If you will look at page 8 of your materials. These are the licensure statistics that you're used to seeing. So first of all, we have a breakdown of the total number of licenses and registrations by type, totaling 1,445. And then below that is just a brief summary of what we have received since the last council meeting. So there have been 33 new licenses and registrations issued, the majority of them in the provisional residential inspector category. Moving forward to page 9, we have the council's cash report. For the ending cash total for 2026, again, this is an estimate. This is based on past year spending, but currently that estimated in-year total is $532,088.25. And on the following page is the certification program cash report. That is for code enforcement officers to receive funding for training and certification, continuing education, et cetera. And the 2026 estimated year-end balance for that account is $115,119.27. Does anyone have any questions about those reports before we move on to a few updates? No? All right, so I do want to make you aware very briefly about a new continuing education opportunity that has come up because it's not something that we normally see on our extensive roster of continuing education courses for our code enforcement officers. But we have had a big call by the industry to provide some training for inspectors related to manufactured home installations. So we were contacted by Mr. George Porter. He is a well-known authority in the manufactured housing industry, and he offers a full-day course to many other states already, specifically geared to local code enforcement officers performing these manufactured home inspections for new or used installations. So we've just gotten that approved. It is on the course for continuing education. So with renewals for our code enforcement officers coming up next year, I just wanted to make you aware of that, and we do hope that that will be really helpful to the local departments. Lastly, a quick update. So I know Holly walked you through the regulatory process for the approval of the code modifications. I wanted to give you a brief update on what we're doing as staff to carry that through and get ready for the implementation in January. So as soon as everything is published in the Register this Friday, I will hit the ground running with the International Code Council. I've already been in conversation with them about getting our South Carolina-specific code books printed. So as soon as everything is ratified, we will hit the ground running with that, start editing those books. And then later this summer, we'll prepare some notices to the industry, not just the Building Codes Council licensees, but also architects, engineers, contractors. We will try to catch everybody that this will affect, the modular building program, and make sure that they're aware of the changes coming, that they know when the South Carolina books will be available. And particularly with our modular building program, we're going to give them a sort of a buffer period at the end of this year before those codes are implemented to begin submitting plan review for the modular building program for the 2027 codes, so that when that implementation starts, they can go ahead and start producing any new models that are ordered to the new code. So that will be a busy season for the modular program, but we'll do our best to make sure everybody is aware well in advance and prepared. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Next, we have the Office of Investigations and Enforcement. Mr. Smith?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Lisa. The modular building program report?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all
Skipped
right.
right over that.
I'll be very quick. Y'all have the normal reporting numbers that I try to provide to you guys. That's on page 9 of, or excuse me, not 9, page 11 of your materials. I did break down the first quarter numbers so far, just again to show you the growth that we're seeing. I do want to let you know that we held interviews for the program coordinator position that we're attempting to hire for with the modular building program. The intent of that position would be for them to take over the daily processing and plan review for the modular building program, because we're seeing such incredible growth. It's just becoming very hard to manage with the team that we have. So we do have a potential candidate. We're working with HR on that, but hopefully I'll have more information at the next meeting. The Modular Review Committee, as you saw, also met on March 24th. We are going to hold another meeting, at least one more, before we bring any recommendations to the council. But as a reminder, the council did ask the committee to look at the certification label process for single-family modular dwellings to see if we can streamline it, bring it more in line with some of the practices of other states. And so we're continuing to look at that, and we hope to have recommendations for the council in August. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. Next, now we have the Office of Investigations and Enforcement. Mr. Smith.
Madam Chairman, the Building Code Council's Office of Investigation Status Report, you should have a copy of it. It was run from January 1 of this year to May 14th of 2026. There have been a total of 23 complaints filed with this board. Currently, there are 0 active investigations, 20 cases or complaints have been closed, and there are 3 pending other actions, 2 in which we'll take care of here momentarily. That is just for your review. Move on to the investigative review conference report. There are 2 cases for your consideration, and they both are for dismissal. This you will vote on.
I would like to move that we accept the report as submitted.
Rich Brigman, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Next is the Office of Disciplinary Counsel, Mr. Alston.
Yes, ma'am. If you have a simple spreadsheet before you, that is as of May 5th of this year, we have 2 open cases in my office for prosecution. Those 2 cases are currently noticed for hearing on a formal complaint in August, so the next council meeting, I will prosecute those cases before you if they are not continued or otherwise disposed of. We have 0 pending closure. We've closed 1 case thus far this year. We have no appeals pending, so a very manageable inventory with the council, and I appreciate that.
Anyone have any questions? Very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business. The first item is request for extension of provisional registration. This is for Ms. Anderson. This hearing is called to order. This is the matter of Ms. Anita Anderson, BCO number 3323. The purpose of this hearing is to determine if Ms. Anderson should be granted an extension of the provisional property maintenance inspector registration that was issued to her. My name is Lisa Clark, and I am the chair of the South Carolina Building Codes Council. The attorney assigned to advise us during the hearing is Eli Grote, Office of Advice Counsel with LLR. Does any council member have reason to recuse him or herself in this manner? Everyone is reminded that these proceedings are being recorded and that all witnesses must be sworn before they testify. All remarks should be directed to the chair. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with the provisions of the South Carolina Administrative Procedures Act and the council's statutes and regulations. Ms. Smith, would you please introduce this matter?
Yes, ma'am. On February 12th, 2026, staff received a written request from Ms. Anderson to extend the expiration date for her provisional property maintenance inspector registration. Ms. Anderson's provisional registration was scheduled to lapse on March 4th, 2026. She has been registered with the council since March 4th of 2025 and has not yet passed a certification exam, and is asking the council to consider an extension to her provisional registration in order to allow more time for her to take and pass the property maintenance inspector exam with ICC. A copy of Ms. Anderson's request, as well as any supporting materials submitted by Ms. Anderson, is included in the council's materials. A copy of Ms. Anderson's credential information is also included, as well as her provisional property maintenance inspector application. In reviewing this request, staff considered Regulation Section 8-120B4, which provides that a person registered in the provisional classification of property maintenance inspector shall obtain a certification within 12 months. Regulation Section 8-120C also provides if any of the times referenced above are not met for the completion of certification or for the completion of a prerequisite for certification, the provisional registration shall be lapsed and canceled and cannot be renewed. Any request for an extension of the provisional registration must be filed within 30 days prior to the registration's expiration date and heard by the council.
Did staff subpoena any other persons to be here today to answer the questions we might have?
No, ma'am.
Anderson present. Oh.
Hello.
Are you represented by counsel? Do you understand that you have the right to be represented by counsel of your own choosing in this matter?
Yes, I do.
You are electing to waive that right and represent yourself instead, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anderson, do you have witnesses that you intend to testify on your behalf?
Yes. Thanks.
Would you please state their name for the record?
Madge Bird. Madge. Last name is Byrd. Thank you.
Both you and Ms. Byrd have to be sworn in, please. Anderson, are you ready to explain why you are requesting an extension of your provisional property maintenance inspector registration and why you should be granted an extension of your provisional property maintenance inspector registration?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I have been with the county over 3 years, almost close to 4. I have been a code officer for the last year and 7 months. I was introduced of that we had to pass the test pretty much over about a year ago. Our office went through some transition with building officials coming in and out, and there were some changes. We was not aware of any training, so it was self-training, and we was trying to gather any information we could. We did receive the literature from ICC, which I did study and everything. And when we did get a building official from Safe Built, this particular person educated us on the different things that was out there available for us, so it wouldn't just be a self-study guide. When we did find out, it was towards the end for me, which was going into January, which the classes pretty much was in January, I think it was, when I was able to seek the help that I needed. With all the different changes, it had me to do more into the office of filling in because we were shorthanded. So it left me with more time to try to figure out how to get the study in to do what I needed to do until we did find the proper help that was offered to us from the LRR board with New England to be able to assist us in study material, which now we find very helpful for other inspectors and building codes in the office. And with that being said, I was asking for more time to be able to now be able to walk into doing that, since now I have the training that I need. So I was requesting more time.
Are there any questions from the council members? Mr. Bradshaw?
Just a couple of quick questions. You said you took a class in January or February?
Yes, sir. It was offered to us towards the beginning of January when we did get a building official to fill in for us. We're using a third party, and from Safe Building, he came in and educated us that these classes from New England was available to us, and we did not know that.
Also, how many times have you tried to pass the exam or take the exam since that class?
Since that class?
Yes.
Once.
Once?
Yes, sir.
Only once?
Yes, sir.
How long was Lawrence County without a building official?
Since I've been there, we have been through a total of 2, and now we have a third party, so I think about 2 years now, right? We'll have one that'll stay about 6 months, 7 months, then they'll transition to somewhere else. So we lost our last.
How long were y'all without a building official?
We've been without one since October 2025.
So you got Safe Built,
Yes, sir.
which was?
In January of this year.
And how many total tries have you tried to take the exam in the past 6 months?
In the past 6 months, it was 5. Yes, sir.
Counting the one
Yes,
since the
sir.
class? Okay. Any other training that you've pursued since?
No, sir. Nothing with what the building official that we do have on board on his spare time. He actually give us a good way to maneuver in the books and how to reference the study on it to prepare.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Smith, so that it was first issued in March 4th. So am I correct? It was extended to get us to this meeting?
Yes, ma'am. So that is standard practice. If we do have someone, because it says request within 30 days of expiration, what we do is we extend their registration date to the council meeting so that they can continue to practice during that time.
So I just wanted to clarify. And Anderson, are you only studying during working hours, or, I mean, are you trying to study at home as well?
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
I know all of our offices can get busy, so it is hard to get that in within the 8-hour workday.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I
Okay.
do it outside as well.
And you've taken it once since the class, the
Yes, ma'am.
training?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, the training that was offered by Safe Built, was he instructed you personally, or were there other code enforcement folks that's also part of the training?
Actually, what he did, he introduced us to New England, which is a company that is well knowledgeable in all the literature that's needed to pass the test. So he introduced that to us that we was not aware of. So with that being said, it was for all the code officers as well as some literature and information that the permit clerks could use and the inspectors. So he was able to let us know that information. So we was able to reach out to New England to start getting in their classes that they had to offer.
So how many code enforcement inspectors y'all have?
Code officer, we have a total of 3, including myself, and we have a total of 3 inspectors that's in our office, and we have a total of 3 permit clerks.
And out of those inspectors that y'all have in your office, are there any certified building officials, CBOs?
Well, not building officials, just Safe Build is our building
Build.
official, and the inspector, we have one that just finished all her residentials.
Question right quick, and this is actually for staff. Ms. Smith, the 30 days that you referenced, they have to make notice within 30 days of their expiration or prior to 30 days of their expiration? Because I'm looking at these dates, and it looks like it was after the 30-day period.
So there's been some discussion with staff and advice council about how that section of regulation can be interpreted. Mr. Groot, would you like to speak to that at all?
We may need to go to executive session for legal advice on that. I'm not sure.
We can provide some legal advice on that in executive session when we get to that.
Let's see, does anyone have any other questions they would like to ask before we go into executive session?
Madam Chairman, I have one. Ms. Anderson, know when the next training opportunities,
Yes, sir. For this particular one, it comes up in August. Yes, sir.
extension would need to carry beyond that period, or?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, but we work together. Right now, I am the deputy building official, working with us for 3 years. I've been with the county for 12. And for the length of time that I've been there, there's been 1, 2, 3 supervisors. And when Safe Built came in, they were the only one that introduced us to these trainings that's available to the inspectors, the clerks, and the code enforcement officers that we were not aware of. And just as soon as he introduced us to these classes, the training, and also tutoring is available. We really jumped on that, and we started working on it. We have a young lady who's the residential building inspector, and she has passed 5 exams. One of our code enforcement officers just passed his. One of the inspectors just passed his first residential inspection, and this training that's available to us has really been an access to this department. And we're just asking, if possible, a 6 months extension to give her time to get through these classes, and we'll be able to keep her on as an employee. Is a dedicated worker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So with that last statement, her job is in the crux of this. If she's not given the extension, she will be
that's-
terminated?
That's correct.
Okay. And also, during your statement, you mentioned tutoring. What tutoring?
Who's the gentleman that's going to tutor?
The class that we took in January, he offered that after hours, if you needed an assistant, to personally give him a call, and he can do some self-training with you, going over the manual and different things like that, and putting together quizzes to try to help if he possibly could from the study that he had taught, because he said that everybody learned different. So if we had any questions, anything we needed after hours, that we can reach out to him, and if he have the time, that he would be glad to help us.
Oh, so you have had, other than just the classes, you've had some tutoring sessions?
Yes, I have
How
contacted
many
him.
of how many tutoring sessions?
Just one, and that's where he said, let's wait till you come back from down at the board, and if they approve you, then we'll put a great study guide together for you. You're welcome.
And, oh, one more thing, I'm sorry, Chair. I apologize. When you take an exam and you're not successful, you do get a printout illustrating the different areas. Do you, by any chance, can we ask this, by any chance have those?
No, sir, I do not.
You don't? Okay.
No, sir.
Board have any more questions? Have a motion to go into executive session?
Before we do that, is there anything further that you would like to add?
No, sir, thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. We were not sure if we could do this, but they said we'll just give it a chance, you know? See what happens. And thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to do it.
Motion to go into executive session?
Patrick Bradshaw, motion so made.
To receive legal advice? To receive legal advice?
To receive legal advice, yes.
Hopkins, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if y'all will excuse us for a little bit. Thank you. Favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion as to the disposition of this extension request?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion that we give Ms. Anderson an extension on this provisional certification through December 31st of 2026.
Second?
Darby Spriggins, second.
Any discussion?
Can I just take this moment just to possibly address Ms. Anderson and just about associations and to get more information? I don't know if we should, during this discussion.
Sorry, is it a discussion on the motion, or you just wanted to make a note to her?
It was a, no, I'll refrain from that.
Maybe better to, if there's no discussion on the substance of the motion, to vote on that, and if there's a comment you wanted to add at the discretion of the chair, we can go that route.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. A new pocket card will be mailed reflecting the updated expiration date to the address listed on file with the council. This concludes the hearing.
Thank you all.
I just want to thank you all very much. This is first for us, and we did not have an idea of what would happen, but I just want to thank you very much for allowing her another opportunity.
Thank you.
There are some gentlemen in the back of the room, if y'all want to maybe get with some of them. There are some state and local associations that could also provide you a lot of guidance on state laws and requirements. You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is discussion about permissive codes and the model codes. Ms. Smith?
Yes, thank you. So I hope everyone did have a chance to look through this item. Primarily, we received a question from the industry recently. They noted that there were some references to what we tend to refer to as permissive codes. Those are the swimming pool and spa code, the existing building code, and the property maintenance code that are listed in section 6-9-60 of the council statutes. That section of statute requires that those permissive codes be adopted by ordinance before a local jurisdiction can enforce them. And what this local code enforcement officer brought to our attention is that there are some references to those three particular permissive codes listed in section 6-9-60 within the body of the model code that is adopted statewide. So they were asking council staff for guidance on whether those references to the permissive codes in the body of the code can still be enforced if a local jurisdiction has not adopted those codes by ordinance in compliance with section 6-9-60. There is a good bit that I would like for Eli to be able to address with you all in executive session if you're willing to do so. He can explain more of the legal side of this, of the statutory requirement versus those codes. But the summary that I provided to you starting on page 23 does walk you through the relevant sections of statute in question, as well as the code sections that this code enforcement officer brought to our attention. There is one from the residential building code. There is a handful, or I'm sorry, yes, one in the residential code, a handful in the building code, and another handful or so in the fire code. And that is the 2021 South Carolina editions that are currently being enforced. So what we're asking for is for the council to review that and make a determination on whether those referenced permissive codes in the body of the text should be enforced without the local jurisdiction adopting them by ordinance, or whether the existing statute carries, and any jurisdictions who wish to enforce those permissive codes must first adopt them by ordinance. Anyone have any initial questions?
Go into executive session.
Chair Patrick Bradshaw, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for legal advice. I would also request that Ms. Smith remain during that, if possible, for questions that may arise during this discussion.
Would you like Ms. Price to stay as well?
If that's
Yes.
fine with me, yes, yes.
We have a second?
David Black, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Sorry to excuse y'all again. Good? Okay. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
Patrick Bradshaw, motion so made to come out of executive session.
David Black, second.
Favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Maggie, would you like to restate the question? And then
Absolutely.
we'll proceed with discussion after that.
Ma'am. So the general summary is that we had a request from a code enforcement officer regarding the applicability of the statute section 6960 and the adoption of permissive codes by ordinance, and whether or not that would supersede referenced permissive codes within the body of the state's adopted model code. And so what staff is asking is for council to provide guidance to the industry regarding whether those references to the permissive codes that are in the state's adopted building code are to be enforced and supersede the need for the requirement for local jurisdictions to adopt them by ordinance.
Start.
I'll just add that I think historically, and those codes were permissible. And I'll take, for instance, property maintenance code, for the mere fact that not all jurisdictions wanted to enforce it because of the magnitude of some of the requirements in it. For instance, chip paint, window screens. So there were a lot of jurisdictions that didn't even want to touch it because they had their own buildings that would have to, would be in violation. So to me, I think it's always been the understanding that those out in the statute as permissible had to be adopted by ordinance, by local ordinance, in order to be enforced. Fact of being mentioned in the codes, to my belief, and the way it's just that I've practiced it,
Here to add to Ms. Clark's comments, if I may.
Hopkins.
I'm looking here. All right. The permissive codes being property maintenance, performance codes for buildings and facilities, existing building codes, swimming pool, spa codes. There's only a handful of codes that are actually referenced in statute 6-9-60 that are identified by state law as permissive codes, and it specifically states in the statute that those have to be adopted by the local jurisdiction to be enforceable. So, and state law would take precedence over any regulation or local ordinance adopting such. So the state law mandating that, in my view, and in concurrence with the prior comment, is that that law mandates it be adopted by ordinance to be used at that local jurisdiction, and the fact that the mandatory codes reference it does not achieve that level of adoption that a local ordinance was.
I would add that, it's been this council's consistently that it's not our intent to dictate to local jurisdictions these permissive codes for them to adopt. And so, up that, well, maybe a jurisdiction can now enforce a permissible code. Not trying to force a permissible code on a jurisdiction.
Have any other comments? Absolutely.
Chris Cullum would like to motion for staff to modify the introduction page of the 2024 Code Modification Index to clarify permissive codes listed in 6-9-60 must be adopted by ordinance to be enforceable, even if referenced in a mandatory code. Again, this is to clarify the code council's intent.
Second,
Patrick Bradshaw, second the motion.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, the last item under new business is travel approval for the ICC conference in October.
Yes, ma'am. So you'll have a copy of the agenda on pages 26 and 27 of your meeting materials. We are requesting that 2 staff members and 2 council members be permitted to attend the ICC annual conference in Nashville this year. It'll take place from October 18th to the 21st. We're bringing this to you so early because they have already opened registration. And we have had 2 council members who are ICC voting members and will be able to obtain continuing education request to attend. That would be Ms. Hopkins and Mr. Bradshaw.
Have a motion for ICC attendance?
Chris Cullum, I make a motion that we approve the travel request for the ICC annual conference.
Mike Richardson, second.
All those in favor?
Discussion?
Wait, hold on a second.
Discussion, please.
Discussion.
I talked with Mr. Brigman this morning, and he stated he would like to go, and I have no objection to his name being replaced for mine.
We can make that notice, staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, is the motion to approve 2 persons to go?
4 persons, 2 staff, 2 board members.
Council members.
That way we don't need to worry about names. I think we had a second.
Okay, we do have a second. We have discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, last on our agenda is public comment.
Mark Nix, Home Builders Association of South Carolina. I hope everyone's having a good afternoon so far. I'm actually here to request the council to consider a special emergency modification to the codes on the next meeting. I know we can't address it today, but just going to bring this forward. What we would like to see is the discussion about the adoption of Appendix BC, which is the accessory dwelling unit. The reason for this is on the exemption of the life safety issue. What we're seeing more and more of is we have accessory structures, as many of you know, might be a shed, a barn, a garage is not meant for habitation. And then, of course, the accessory dwelling unit is. It might be a mother-in-law suite in the backyard, or it could be a rental unit down the road that we're seeing more and more of, especially on the coast. And what we're asking our building officials to do is try to distinguish what read the mind of the consumer, what they're going to do with it. So in other words, and the life safety issue comes into this part. If it's not going to be lived in, it really doesn't need to be brought up to the full codes. We don't need to worry about some of the life safety issues and the plumbing and electrical. But if it is going to be lived in, we should, and it should be built up to those codes. And I know we're starting to run into this problem, especially on the coast, when people trying to decide is it an accessory dwelling, which in other words, I mean it to be a shed, but now I have to actually bring it to full codes for someone to habitate in, which doesn't make sense. But also, if we look at the appendices of the BC, it would at least show what the defining mechanisms are to make an ADU out of it and what they would have, the codes they would have to follow. So I'm not asking for anything today. I'm asking for just the consideration as an emergency modification for this, and maybe look at the next meeting.
Have you submitted an emergency code modification request? I think Ms. Smith might be able to get you that form, and that would be the first step, I believe.
Yes, I will work with Mr. Nix to get him that form so that he can submit the request. Absolutely.
Of what, so ADU is a dwelling unit.
Correct.
So I'm confused.
What I'm seeing is we're having a few officials on the coast especially, where you see maybe it's supposed to be a shed or a detached garage, and they're actually making it being built to an ADU standard. Or vice versa. What happens if all of a sudden the homeowner doesn't tell you that there's going to be an ADU as another rental structure in the backyard, and they build it just as an accessory structure? So I mean, that's where the life safety side comes in. But at the same time, like I said, part of this issue is if you look at and like I said, I still have to a little bit more. I just came up with this yesterday. I had a bunch of calls yesterday over this, and I want to research a little bit further. That what I'm told is that Appendix BC would actually define it a little better for the local building official to determine whether it's an accessory structure or an ADU going in. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep on talking. In 20 years, I think it's my first emergency modification I've asked for, so.
Yes, we'll certainly work with Mr. Nix's staff to get that request together. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Else wish to speak? Okay. If that is the case, we stand adjourned. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Mike Loman, so moved.
Patrick Bradshaw, second.
Those in favor? Thank you.